A to the K.
To the K.
To the K.
Hello, one and all. Welcome to the A to the K Wrestling Show. Did you miss us? We left you hanging again, didn't we? We like to do that at the minute.
Just inconsistent podcasting. That's what you get from us.
That's it. We stuck true for like 2 years, and then by year 3, we were just like, can't bother. I mean, to be fair, the world was locked down for 2 years, so we couldn't have possibly.
That is true, and I feel like we've always been somewhat
really
inconsistent. Like we kept changing for 2 years. We kept changing the day we put it out. We put one out consistently, but you never knew when.
This is true.
So
I remember one of the earlier signatures was like Sunday, Monday, whenever or something, wasn't it?
Yeah. I love that one. I kind of miss that one. Like I think like the one we got now is it's better, it's punchier, it's quicker, and more professional probably. But I miss my janky intros.
Holds a warm place in our hearts, doesn't it? And speaking of things that we hold warm in our heart, it's time to pass it over to Road Dogg for A to the K's little known fact of the week.
Oh, you didn't know?
So, Anthony, WWE is headed over here to the UK on Saturday. And as we know, the last time WWE held a premium live event of this magnitude, it was, of course, SummerSlam 92, where Bret Hart defended the IC title against the British Bulldog. Now, all of our avid listeners and watchers will hopefully have seen the 2 interviews we did with Davey's daughter, Georgia Smith, where she revealed a number of facts about that match. But Anthony, did you know the unique sharpshooter spot from this match, where they're basically both laid out on the floor and Bret kind of stands up and puts the sharpshooter on him, was created in a somewhat unusual time and place, if you will. Now, Bret revealed that he came up with the spot while he was lying in bed at 3 a.m. with his wife. So, don't know what they were doing at that time. But yeah, so basically, he woke up at 3 a.m. He had the move on his mind, and he woke up his wife to try it out. So the fact he managed to get his wife on the floor at 3 a.m. in the morning and put her in a sharpshooter is probably the reason why that marriage didn't last. But
I mean, did she tap? That's the question.
That's a very valid question, to be fair. So, can you imagine that? That's the most Bret Hart thing ever, isn't it? Like, honey,
I've had an idea.
let me just, it's very Stu Hart even, isn't it? He's like probably like rubbing his hands together. Yeah, let me.
I know nothing of his wife, but I imagine the response initially was, "Go the fuck to sleep."
Not again. So there you have it. That was A to the K's little known fact of the week, and this is Road Dogg to sing us out of the segment.
Oh, you didn't know?
Thanks, Road Dogg.
Thanks, Road Dogg. Yeah, we don't give this guy props. Obviously, re-signed with WWE now, isn't he, as well? Maybe we should put that in the news. But let's kick things off, shall we?
Generation X just running the whole show. Running the badass Billy Gunn back. An X-Pac, he needs to make some noise.
Yeah, it does. But let's do what we always do. We'll start off with WWE. And this week, Anthony, Kurt Angle made his return on Monday Night Raw. And how nice was it to see Kurt Angle again? Because we've seen him, we've met him. He's our friend.
He's looking well as well, wasn't he? Last we heard, he was struggling a bit after the surgery. He was looking well.
Well, that's it. 2 double knee replacements isn't ideal, is it? But he looked good, to be fair. And he made
2 double knee replacements.
2 double knees, yeah.
How many knees?
4 knees. This guy. That's it. He always says he won a gold medal with a broken freaking neck, but he had 4 knees. So really, there was an advantage there. It was super nice, I think, to see Kurt Angle back, and as always with Kurt, he brought with him some hilarious moments. So obviously, I like the segments he had with Gable. I think we've made comparisons in the past between Gable and Angle. So the fact them 2 having a little shoosh off definitely got a chuckle out of me. The thing, fair play to him as well, the thing with the Street Profits where they poured him a bit of a drink into a cup and he had a sip of it and then spat it out. Obviously, he's recovering alcoholic. So that was nice that he, didn't mind playing into that, and obviously replacing that with big bottles of milk was just the most Kurt thing ever. And obviously drawing from the segment with Edge with the the pictures and the stuff written on the back, and I love how he was like, "Oh, I'm not falling for this again," and the first one's blank, and it's just like, "Oh, okay," and then obviously the rest of them are just the same, so just brilliant. And
yeah,
it was
quality stuff.
It was awesome, but at the same time, kind of, it's a shame because it kind of reminds me or makes me think like none of the current crop of talents kind of provide moments like this. Like this was classic, and I know it's Kurt Angle. Like who can ever provide moments like Kurt? But
I mean, it's funny you say because like the closest I suppose we've got is the likes of Gable.
Yeah.
You know, creating the segments and that with the shoosh stuff, and even that's not really comparable, to be honest. But it's the closest you get.
Yeah, you got a good point there. Yeah, it's a shame. It made me miss seeing these more regularly. Do you know what I mean? But obviously, just lovely to see Kurt back and nice to see him involved in, multiple segments throughout the night.
Indeed, and it just made for a great Raw all round.
Indeed.
Yeah. Speaking of great Raw, I don't know. Anyway, here's a bit of a swerve for you, Carl. I'm not talking about Isaiah here.
I was going to say, bloody hell, he's bringing everyone back.
So obviously we've been having this tournament for the women's tag titles, women's tag title champs, and I was quite surprised with the finish. Now I'm kind of not happy with it. I want to get your thoughts on it, but basically I was surprised with the finish being that Raquel Gonzalez and Aaliyah actually won the titles.
Yeah,
but I'm also a little bit because I think it's fair to say it was probably a foregone conclusion they weren't going to win. So I get what they've done here. It's a bit of a swerve, bit of a what's the word? Juxtaposition? I don't know. Anyway,
and Cody Rhodes.
I was trying to think of other Codyisms.
Don't want to sound apropos. Like fuck's sake,
that's
Cody.
like a catchphrase. That is definitely right when he comes back to WWE. After tearing yet another muscle, probably. He's definitely going to have that as a shirt, isn't he? He's going to lean into it, and he's just going to make an apropos shirt.
It wouldn't surprise me. Would not surprise me.
But the reason I might not be happy with this card, because I'm all for the women's tag titles, for starters, getting a push. Raquel Gonzalez and Aaliyah are both very talented, and they could get a push. But this doesn't feel like they're getting a push. It feels like they snuck a win, and they were lucky to do so, and they're probably not going to hold the belts very long, especially with the way the finish was, with Aaliyah essentially sneaking back in and getting the pin. I don't know. I feel like this is something that WWE have done before with many talents where they're playing a bit part to their own thing. So that they've won the titles, but really the whole thing was about Bayley.
Yeah.
And I've not got an issue with pushing the whole Bayley thing, but it seems at the expense of what were meant to be like these two becoming champions.
It doesn't exactly paint the tag titles in the nicest of lights, does it? Considering all the stuff around them not being utilised, and Sasha and Naomi walking out in the first place because they felt like they weren't being taken serious. So to have it, like, don't get me wrong, the fact it was a swerve, it is interesting. It keeps you on your toes, and it's like, okay, what?
I'd have just loved for them to have. I would love for the win to have felt more legit. That's all.
Yeah, no, you're right there. I think interestingly, I'm wondering whether or not the reason they did this, because for me it was definitely going to go to Dakota and Io, but I'm wondering if they did this because maybe Sasha and Naomi have actually re-signed, and therefore they're going to come back, and they didn't want to take any heat away from Bayley's new stable. So it's kind of like, well, we need to have a conclusion to this, so let's have them win it and have Sasha and Naomi come back and reclaim it, kind of thing. So I don't really know.
Maybe.
But,
I don't know, for me, it's like, this is the kind of shit that it's like, this is why no one's really into the women's tag titles. Like, we had a nice tournament for it. We had an enjoyable tournament. And this was putting some notoriety. I mean, this was the main event. So it was still quite notable on the card. But, I don't know, just still feels like they're not taking the belt seriously, man.
Yeah, no, I kind of feel you on that, to be fair. Let's see what they do.
Can you stop feeling me?
Aw, come on. We're all friends here. So the next one I want to talk about, then, kind of in the news this week, is WWE no longer moving to TV14. Now, you'd never tell that based on this segment. So I really like this, to be fair. And don't get me wrong, they completely stole it from the UFC when John Jones and Daniel Cormier had their little,
yeah,
spats.
their names I know.
Just nod and agree. But they basically did this. Like the WWE stole this practically verbatim from this real, thing that occurred between John Jones and Cormier. But I like it. I like that they tried to do something a bit different here, and it's hyped me even more for Rollins versus Riddle, because I was hyped already, but this added like another dimension to it. So I thought it also added another dimension to the pair of them. Now, Rollins is very kind of he's a clown, isn't he? That's his new gimmick. He's a clown. He laughs a lot. He dresses, in stupid shit, and he's annoying, right?
He plays up to the crowd, doesn't he?
Of course, but then to see him post segments, kind of being like almost he switched that character off, and it was the real Rollins. That was a nice touch, I think, and the fact that he was. Because even in MMA, in other sports, people do hype it up in front of the camera, and then when it's off, it's not.
Do you know what I will say? I think this sold me on the potential for Riddle to be taken seriously in the future as well.
Yes, I agree. So obviously,
I find
you
it hard to look
side.
past this goofball stoner gimmick.
Well, that's it. It was another element on top of Riddle, wasn't it? Whereas he wasn't just like, bro. It was like he is a legit badass. He's a former MMA fighter, and he had massive aggression and like
this. In a way, this kind of reassured me that down the line when he eventually moves away from the whole stoner gimmick, that he probably can be like quite an intense dude, like you say. It'd be interesting to see what the future holds for him, because I know this was only a segment, but I don't know, it makes you think. Yeah, okay, and maybe I could see him in the main title picture.
Well, that's it. Like, if you look at him with his like bro stuff, you would think, nah, he's not, he's not main event ready. But you see this side of him, and you think, actually, it could work. So fair play. But yeah, it was interesting, and obviously they beeped it out and stuff. But he was dropping f-bombs, saying he was going to fuck him up and stuff like that. So it was different, and it was good, and it felt refreshing, which Raw hasn't felt in a long time.
Kind of the feud I didn't know I wanted, but now I really want it.
Well, exactly. It's been going on for like we should have got it at SummerSlam, and there's been stuff, but not really a lot's happened. But this was the thing that pushed me over the edge, because I think we were saying at SummerSlam, this is potentially going to steal the show based on the talent, like, and how talented they are. But now you add this intensity to it, then it's a whole different level, isn't it? So
yeah, that's like 20%. But I can't even do the thing. What is it? The Steiner math. Do the Steiner math, Carl.
Nobody can do the Steiner math. Even Steiner can't do the Steiner math.
That's true. Well, didn't somebody look into that and all the math actually added up?
It wouldn't surprise me if it did. It was a secret genius.
But you know what? Speaking of, like, that worked, right? Totally agree. That was a brilliant segment. You know what's not working for me? And I'm curious to know whether you agree with me on this, because it's not working for me, I'll be honest with you. And that's all this stuff with Dexter Lumis and The Miz.
Yeah.
Right? And I don't know. Maybe I'm just a bit overdone on the whole Lumis thing, especially because they're kind of like, I don't know, I feel, are we a bit past Lumis as a creepy character because they've kind of already fucked him up on NXT? I don't know. But this whole, like, obviously we had The Miz versus Bobby, which was always probably going to be the same result. Let's be honest. Lumis or no Lumis, Miz wasn't winning. But I don't know, all this creepy, like, he walks past Dexter, but then it's not Dexter, and then during the match he's there in the crowd and distracts him, and it's like again, like, does he need to distract The Miz for Bobby to win? Not really, but I don't know. I'm just not overly sold on this whole sort of creepy stalking thing he's doing to The Miz. Do we even know why he's picked The Miz at this point?
No, that's it. I mean, that's it.
Or has he just picked The Miz?
He's just picked The Miz.
Or has he got the same issue we all have with him? Like, how did you get Maurice?
I'll take you out the picture and I'll take it myself. See, the thing is, I've said it before. The first time I saw Lumis in NXT, I was like, okay, this kid's got something. He could be a really interesting character.
And he was for like a minute.
Well, that's it. He was, and then they did all the stupid shit in NXT with Indy Hartwell and getting married and all this kind of crap, and it was awful with like the fun house type stuff, or the horror house, whatever the fuck it was, and they ruined him basically. So when they brought him back, I was like, oh, they could do something here. But the problem for me, this feels more like, Lily Doll than it does like Psychopath, if that makes sense. It's kind of like, oh, I'm expecting him to be in like a boiler room and like, The Miz be there looking in the mirror. It's going that direction, isn't it? Which is more goofy.
I think the Lily Doll connection is like that's actually a really good one, because I was about to say it wasn't the whole Indy Hartwell stuff that done me in on him. I was sort of, I wasn't like totally against him. Like there was always time to be like, oh yeah, this guy's badass. But it was when he had this feud with the cowboy lad, whatever his name is,
Cameron Grimes.
Cameron Grimes, right? And it's like, oh yeah, we're gonna have this haunted house match or whatever the fuck it was, and it was basically like what felt like 20 minutes, maybe less. I hope it was less, of just Grimes mugging for the camera, and then like you say, where's Doomer's gonna pop up next?
Yeah,
and it's like, what the fuck is this? Like, I don't know. It that to me sold it. Well, not sold. It ruined the character in that sense. It's like you want the creepy element, but that can't be all he's about. I don't think I've ever really seen much of him wrestling. I'll be honest.
no.
So I don't know. I'm just not sold on this. I hope it does go somewhere good. I'm not trying to be totally negative about it, but this was just another week of what's Loomis doing? Where's he going to pop up? Not big.
That's it.
Not
It's
big.
getting a bit repetitive now, isn't it? We need to see some actual action or intent, but we will see.
We will.
The final thing to discuss on WWE this week is kind of mostly SmackDown, but a little bit on Raw as well. Is we had Sammy Guevara. We had Sami Zayn taking on Drew McIntyre on SmackDown. The Bloodline interfered, and basically the whole Bloodline and Sammy beat the absolute shit out of Drew. And it ends with Roman basically sitting on a chair over Drew's lifeless body. And it was really.
That's a really almost iconic scene, that as well, isn't it? Which is pretty cool.
Well, that's it. It was a really good way to end SmackDown, a really good way to build, some more hype for Clash of the Castle. But then on Raw this week, so you've kind of had Sammy being like this secret weapon almost of the Bloodline on SmackDown, but then on Raw they have like a little segment with the Usos and Sammy, and Kevin Owens comes out and basically calls out Sammy for being the Bloodline's bitch. And it ends up in a match with one of the Usos, can't remember who, against Kevin Owens, and there's a spot where they want Sammy to hit Owens with a chair, and he refuses to do it. And now it's kind of like, okay, so there's a bit of now dissension in the Bloodline, like Sammy was a hero on SmackDown, but now they're like, oh, he's not, following our orders and stuff. So I'm not really sure where it's going, but I also think...
I'll tell you where it's going. Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn winning the tag titles from the Usos. That's
well,
where it's
there's
going.
that. I mean, it definitely seems like it's going that way for them too. But in terms of the main event for Clash of the Castle, like, are we going to get some kind of weird thing with Sami Zayn now, or is he going to potentially accidentally cost the Roman? Like, it feels like there's more to it, but I just can't really place my finger on exactly what's going to happen, if that makes sense. So
yeah, I'd say your points. Like, that could be where they're headed, because I honestly, at this point, and this isn't a bad thing, this is a really good thing. At this point, I have no idea what's going to happen on the main title front, especially. Like,
yeah,
so many people are like, oh, it's almost like that could probably be the only issue, is that it's almost got to a point now where so many people have decided things are going to happen that someone's going to be disappointed. Like, so many people have decided the Fiend's going to rock up, because apparently he bought a ticket to Belfast under his real name. Did you hear that? And it's like, I fucking hope he does, kind of, because otherwise people aren't going to appreciate what's there. They're just going to moan about the fact they didn't get the thing they thought it was. And we might almost be a victim of that, because it's so unpredictable that people are just making their own sort of mental decisions on it and going, well, that's what's going to happen.
Yeah, perhaps.
But I'm just excited to see what does happen.
Me too, man. Me too.
Yeah.
And speaking of things that were unpredictable, if we move swiftly over to AEW this week, now we saw the results of this. This is going to sound really weird. I was like, while we were away camping together. It's not like that, everybody.
In the
woods. We were on the same vacation with our very separate families. But yeah, so obviously...
other ends of the village, really.
Yeah, practically. Yeah, miles away. But yeah, so I saw the results of this. I mentioned it to you around the campfire, and we were both just in shock about it. So we had Jon Moxley and CM Punk, the title unification match, which that in itself, we were like, why are they doing it on Dynamite? Why aren't they doing it at the pay-per-view? So that in itself was really bizarre. But what was more bizarre, and what was super unpredictable that nobody expected, was CM Punk lost in 3 minutes. Moxley squashed him. And it was a squash. Like, they traded They traded a couple of shots early on, but then essentially Moxley just absolutely battered him. And I get that it was in Cleveland and it was Moxley's hometown. The crowd were very split. It was very much a "Let's go Moxley, let's go Punk." So it wasn't like they were shitting on Punk by any means, but it was a very split crowd. But yeah, I don't think anyone expected it to go that way. And I think what's even more bizarre is where are they going with it now? Like, are we going to see a rematch at All Out because it's not being announced? Is Punk even ready to go, or did they do this because he's not going to be ready to go for a while and to get the belt off him? It leaves a lot of questions unanswered.
There's like so many people reading into it as well because obviously he went for his sore foot again, but then like people are like, oh no, he went for the wrong foot. He's playing mind games or whatever, and it's all a work and this and that. I'm like, look, I'm all for long term storytelling. I'm all for like clever storytelling, but I swear to God, AEW, if you don't pay this shit off soon, like if MJF doesn't rock up at All Out, I'm gonna stop defending you. I really am.
I mean, yeah, like that thing you just said then doesn't make any sense. Where he grabbed the wrong foot. So like, are they saying that Punk was happy to lose the title to play mind games? Like, come on, what the fuck? Doesn't make any sense.
I'm not quite sure what that was.
Yeah, that doesn't make
that is what he
any
did.
sense. Yeah. So
I know.
So I don't know.
I'll get a rematch. That'll show him. Like,
yeah. But the thing about MJF is fascinating. So, like for me, I was listening to Jim Cornette earlier, and he said he reviewed this. And he reviewed this match, and he had an interesting take on it. To be fair, he didn't. Similar to us, he couldn't understand why the hell they gave it away on free TV because it should have been the pay-per-view main event. So his opinion was it's one of two things: either Punk has gone, do you know what? I'm sick of this company. It's full of drama, and I don't want to try and save his anymore, and he's done, which I don't think. Or his other thought was, well, Punk just literally might be injured or he can't go for whatever reason, so we might see some kind of open challenge from Moxley, which is then answered by. Because he was basically saying you had face versus face, and that the crowd was so split. He was like, "Why would you do that? It should have been good guy versus bad guy." So he said, "What would be more, hated than an open challenge?" And is answered by MJF in Chicago. So
this would be, especially if he comes out to Punk's music. This might not be a popular opinion, but I am actually happier if we get MJF Moxley.
Yeah,
because I wasn't overly sold on going into an MJF because obviously everyone's like, "Oh, MJF's coming back and he's going to challenge for the title," and that seems like the logical conclusion to this work. That is definitely a work, but then that would have led to, at the time, MJF versus Punk again. And as much as they do put on really good matches, and I wouldn't have been like totally pissed off about it, I'm kind of happy that it's not.
Yeah,
or potentially not, assuming MJF has planned to come back and it isn't like actual drama. I don't know.
Yeah,
but a lot of people are like, no, AEW's dying from the inside, and I'm like, nah. This is why they need to pay MJF off, just so I don't have to keep hearing about the fact that like everything's going to shit. I'm fucking bored of it now.
If they do go down this route though, where it's MJF comes back and we have MJF versus Moxley and MJF wins it or whatever, then ultimately we are going to get MJF Punk. Because it's already set up, isn't it? Have they traded wins now? Was it one each? Because Wardlow's.
It feels like there was loads. I feel like they had 3 matches.
I think in the dog collar match, MJF beat him, and then I know Wardlow cost MJF in one of the other matches, but I can't remember if they had a third. But
I feel like they had a third.
Have they?
Like it was done. It was over.
They might have done. But either way, we're still going to get it again. But yeah, I think it's interesting because I have no idea what they're doing going into All Out because this was the main event in my eyes. It was always going to be Moxley and Punk to kind of unify the titles. And now that they've given that away, if they go down the rematch route, I'm going to be pissed because, like,
why?
Like fair dues, he gets a rematch because there's a clause, but he got battered in 3 minutes, so it's kind of cheapened the whole match. And if they've done that to pop a TV rating, then that's pretty poor, to be fair. So yeah, I don't really know where they're going to go with it, but shock factor was there, and
Moxley out Khan.
Yeah, and Moxley's the champ, so I think he's going to address us tonight on Dynamite, so we'll see what he has to say.
We shall see.
Mm-hmm.
But you know what? Bad shit this week. Bad shit all round this week. Or last week, depending on your perspective or when you listen to it. Because Thunder Rosa's injured, Cal.
She is.
Yeah. She cut a tearful promo this week, or last week, depending on when you're listening. And now, essentially, we've got a 4-way at All Out to determine the new champ.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know about you, Carl, but it's just not a decent 4-way without Thunder.
This isn't what goes on in your little mind.
But no, obviously, I am a Thunder mark, if you will. And I've been a massive fan of hers since since NWA. But I said to you a few dozen times, Carl, that I think she needs just a couple more like really good quality matches for her title run. And now she's kind of been robbed of a title run. And don't be wrong, this is one of them things where she can come back from injury and she can go for it again, and try and reclaim what she missed out on and so on. So I'm not worried about that side of it. But it's a shame it's ended like that.
Yeah.
But that being said, we've got a fatal. Did we call it a fatal 4-way?
Yeah, I think
Is that
so.
WWE thing? Got a fatal 4-way, Carl, at All Out. So who do you think is going to win?
Oh, well, we need
we've
to
got,
we need to save that.
We've got Tony Storm's in there, Britt Baker's in there.
Who else we got? We've got Jamie Hayter, and we've got Hikaru Shida.
Hikaru Shida. So 2 former champs there.
Indeed.
So we're gonna go. I mean, the wild or potential dark horse for me would be Jamie Hayter. She's like getting a lot of popularity at the minute, but probably is the least likely in terms of like, if you're putting bets on it odds wise, she's probably the least likely to win.
It's very polarizing. Either she's going to win it or she's going to eat the pin. It's one or the other, isn't it? Because if you look at it on paper, she's not even least experienced, but she's the least featured of the 4 of them at the moment. Yeah. So she's likely to eat the pin. But
for me, you've got 2 former champs there. Either one of them are viable to win it again.
Mm-hmm.
And Toni Storm is like, she's essentially got a rocket up her ass at the minute, and she come in really high profile and has been absolutely killing it. So for me, naturally, I expect like Toni Storm's going to win it, and then you set up a rivalry or a rematch, I suppose, because they have had matches between Tony and Thunder down the line, maybe.
Yeah, well, I think that was what they were originally going to do, and I don't know how long Thunder's out for, but I think that they're keeping her as the champ, so this is to crown an interim title. I think they're sticking with the interim approach, so I don't think they've like stripped her.
But as I understand it, like I don't know the full details of her injury, but isn't it something to do with her discs in her spine? So that
I'm not
sounds
too
like
sure.
She'll be out for a bit. Like,
it's definitely. I don't think she's back imminently by any means, but I think that they're not going to take the belt off her at least. So whoever wins it, depending on how long they keep it, then they're going to set up something down the line, I would imagine. I
don't mind the idea of interim titles, to be honest.
Yeah,
other than they do it. Around,
they do it in UFC and stuff like that. Whenever the champ can't fight for whatever reason, if they're injured and stuff, to keep activity in the division. So I quite like it. It makes sense to me.
But yeah, I mean, do you have a particular favourite for starters that you want to win, and a particular one that you think is likely to? Should I say?
It's a very interesting one, this. I could see Tony winning it, to be fair. I would not be against Britt winning it again, but I know people absolutely hate the idea of that happening. So, but yeah, Jamie Hayter as well would be awesome. So, I feel like I'm saying everyone but Hikaru Shida. I don't mean it to sound that way.
Everyone but Hikaru Shida would be great.
That's not what I mean. But
it's funny, because I actually wouldn't mind. I think Hikaru Shida had a very underrated run. And I don't know, I wouldn't mind seeing her have the title again, in all fairness.
Yeah, I think who I'd like to win it would be Jamie Hayter. I think who's probably more likely to win it is Toni Storm, but we will see.
Well, there you have it.
And speaking of setting things up for All Out, we had Jericho and Bryan Danielson essentially challenge each other to a match, which is going to be a fucking banger. And look, I really like the idea of Jericho and Danielson, don't get me wrong. I think it's going to be really good. But I'm not thrilled by them fighting over Danny Garcia. Because essentially that's what it is. He may as well be on a fucking pole at this point. Because the way they're booking it now is, well, Danny Garcia, did he beat him? Or did he lose? I think he lost, didn't he? So it's like Garcia lost to
when
Danielson.
You say on a pole, you don't mean like dancing, do you?
I mean, it's entertainment. It's what the JAS do. But, yeah, I don't know. They don't need to be fighting. Like, there's enough here without him being in the middle of it, if that makes sense. But it's one of those. I get that he's kind of the catalyst for how the feud's come about, but it gives me a bit of solace that towards the end, after the whole cheesiness of Garcia pushing Jericho and all that kind of stuff. It leaned more into, well, who's the better wrestler? So I'd like it if that's where the feud transitioned to this week.
That's what it should be. That's all it needs to be.
Yeah, it's exactly all it needs to be, because I like the way they've and it's all bullshit as well, because Jericho isn't the last graduate of the Heart Dungeon by any means. But I like the way...
Hey, smart Alec.
Tyson Kidd?
I don't know, probably.
I am pretty sure it was Tyson Kidd. But essentially, I mean, he didn't even go in the Heart Dungeon, so that's what's funny. He wasn't even anyway. But I like the way they referenced...
TV, definitely was.
I like the way they referenced Stu Hart and Owen Hart and stuff like that, and I like the way they were saying, like, who would Owen say is the better wrestler, and it was like, ooh. So I like, the fact that Owen can be mentioned, even that in itself is awesome, but I like that we're getting Lionheart again, and it's kind of like American Dragon versus Lionheart, and it feels very kind of, this is a wrestling match, which is what it should be. So, yeah, looking forward to it.
Indeed. Me too.
Mm-hmm.
So, Carl, and I feel like I say this an awful lot, so I'm going to apologise now in advance, but our favourite heavy metal band, Death Triangle, had a match this week, and yet again, I feel like I say this every time we see them in the ring in some form. What a fucking good match we had here.
See, to make it the same every single week, you have to say, and I don't know why, but I wasn't expecting it to be this good.
I wasn't expecting it to be this
It's like we should have learned by now.
But no, I just need to call out a banger of a match. Obviously, Death Triangle going up against United Empire. United Empire taking the win. And you know what? I don't know much about him, but I'm kind of hyped. We had Kip Sabian returning.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, it's kind of been a long time coming. He's been out for a bit. I don't know what he was actually injured with.
Yeah, I don't know.
But they're obviously setting up him and Pac, because he obviously returned mid-match and took Pac out of the game. So, for starters, that's interesting. But secondly, what do you make of Kip being back? Because, I mean, there's no shade on Kip. I don't feel like we got a lot of him in ring before he ended up injured. So, I don't really know a great deal of him.
No, we didn't really, to be fair. I think when we were talking about it, we were seeing Penelope as the kind of breakout of the couple. If that made sense.
Mad, yeah. I mean, I'm not saying that there was a reason we noticed her first, but she definitely outshone him, unfortunately, in the early years of AEW. And I say unfortunately because I'm not saying he's not a talented guy by any means, but you can see so much potential in her that we were both a bit like she needs to wrestle more. What's going on here?
And I think, to be fair, early years that the women's roster wasn't as deep and stuff as well, so she kind of really stood out because she wasn't being utilised much, and we were like, well, there you go, you're talking about having a lack of women's wrestlers, use Penelope more. So,
yeah, exactly, yeah. But because of that, and because of the fact that I don't think he managed to get a great deal of matches on the card before being out for as long as he was, I don't know a lot of him to whether to be hyped or not. I mean, obviously he's I want to say a local lad. He's a Brit, so we've got to support.
He's like Norwich ways, isn't he? I think he trained under the Knights, didn't he? Yeah. So I think it'd be interesting though. I like that he's gone after Pac, which also makes me think as well, because obviously the All Atlantic Championship hasn't really been defended on AEW much of it all. Yeah. So are we going to see it defended in like WAW, for example? Or somewhere like that, and that's why they're kind of setting up the feud. It's an interesting approach because they do a lot of the promotion on AEW TV, and then we never see the match because it's elsewhere. So I guess it's their way to get people tuning into other things. But I think it's
a good
interesting
way with the indies in it, to be fair.
Yeah, and I also just want to say as well, because we know how good Death Triangle is, and we joke now because we always go, God, it's so good. But Will Ospreay, man, I never saw much of him in New Japan, but he's fucking good. He is really good. I'd be made up if he came over to AEW or something. I think he's he's a baller. He's good.
What do you make of this? I was kind of starting to get sold on him with his back and forth with Kenny, and he was like, basically he's done everything Kenny's done in New Japan, but in a much shorter amount of time. And I'm sat lamenting on that a little bit, going, it's kind of true, actually.
Well, this is what baffles me, Anthony, because...
Would you rate him higher than Kenny?
Well...
I know a lot of people wouldn't. Kenny's best in the world, etc., but he is a talented dude, and he's moved quick, and he really think about it.
I prefer his match style than Kenny Omega's. That don't get me wrong. Kenny Omega's is very Japanese, whereas Ospreay is quite a blend. I think he's got British style. He's got
Fucking blender. Yeah.
a bit more American style in there as well. But not to jump ahead to, but you just made me think.
You
I'm
can do the
curious.
Canadian style, the American style, British style.
That's why they call me the British Bulldog. Poor Davey.
Sorry.
But I also wanted to just point out, because we mentioned that Kenny Omega and Ospreay. Now, the next thing I was going to talk about is also on the trios. So obviously in that match, as you mentioned, United Empire won. But then we also got House of Black taking on Dark Order. And Dark Order won. Which, so for me, in my mind, I was, again, shocked by that, because what we've got now is we've got the Elite versus United Empire in the semi-finals. And that means that with House of Black losing, they're not going to make it to the finals either. So it's going to be either Dark Order or Best Friends. So for me, the money matches to make for the finals of those trio titles was going to be a mixture of the Elite, United Empire, and House of Black.
I am actually baffled that House of Black aren't in the finals.
It's it's ludicrous, isn't it? But obviously
they're wildly popular, probably one of the most successful factions in AEW's history, and they're not in the finals. It just baffled me.
And I get it, because after the tournament ends, then they need somewhere to go, right? So House of Black is going to get the time, absolutely. But the reason they lost was Miro came out and basically caused a distraction for Dark Order to pick up the win. And then House of Black start beating him down, and Sting and Darby come out. So it looks like we're getting some kind of trios match that isn't for the titles at All Out. So it's going to be Miro, Sting, and Darby against House of Black, maybe. Which, okay, but
Sting just adopting strays now, because none of that's related. How are they a faction?
Well, that's it. But I don't mean any offense, but it sounds like it's going to be the winner of the Elite and United Empire against, probably Best Friends. I can't see Dark Order making it there. So, and it's like,
Best Friends, man. I'm not sure that's a good shout. So really not.
Well, that's it. If anything, we should have kept United Empire versus Elite for the pay-per-view if House of Black were going to go this route.
Well, yeah.
But yeah, there you have it.
Crazy times ahead.
Indeed, and we're going to talk about them, Anthony, aren't we? Because we've got all-out predictions, we've got Clash of the Castle predictions, and we've got all the latest news and rumours coming up. And if you haven't heard, we've got a new partner, haven't we?
Yeah.
We are now partnered with Top Rope, who are, absolute pioneers in the beer making business, make wrestling related beers, stuff like Cold Stone Cream Austin. We've got stuff like basically any kind of wrestler you can think of. There's probably a beer that they come up with that relates to them in some way.
And do you know what? Unlike other podcasts, right? I don't know why I'm trying to throw shade here, because I'm literally not talking anymore. Unlike other podcasts that are going to be like, hey, why don't you shave your balls with this ball shaver? Right? we actually will drink the beers. We've got the beers. We're going to drink the beers. We're going to talk about how we feel about some of those beers.
While we shave our balls?
While we shave our balls with the latest ball shaver. But the reason I mention it, Carl, is because I don't know fully how we plan on doing this, but obviously we're going to be trying a few of the different beers. We bought what's the one? We might as well promote that particular pack at the moment, the Clash.
Yeah, so they've got a special. I think in order to get it, you have to order it by 12 p.m. tomorrow, though. So by the time you listen to this or watch this,
we got it. So
anyway. But I think the plan, Anthony, is we're going to do a weekly thing called Top Rope Tuesdays. So
nice.
The day before we record the podcast, we're going to give you a little bit of insight into what the beer of the week is for that week, and obviously in whichever segments to be decided, we will we'll talk about the beer for that week. So I think it's a nice little partnership. It's a local company to us, and it kind of they align with us. It's two best mates who had a passion for something, started it up, and they're making it work.
After our own hearts, really.
Exactly. So
and you know what? What I love is that they've made us getting drunk and talking about wrestling like a deliberate thing now.
Exactly. Like we have to do it because, do you know what I mean?
Now we're promoting stuff. That's
exactly.
Great.
So we've
You
got to
just do that anyway.
Exactly. So make sure you check out that anyway. But yeah, so that's it for this week in wrestling this week. I feel bad now because we were just throwing shade at other podcasts out there, and I noticed this week we were getting shouted out on a few different podcasts as well. Obviously, we're part of the what do we call it? It's like the prediction. Oh, damn it! What's the other one? Not our prediction series. There's another prediction thing. I'm so bad because I forget what the hell it's called.
Oh no, the fantasy.
That's it, Fantasy Faction. Yeah. God, I'm old.
Which is amazing fun, to be fair. Really good fun.
Indeed. So,
and by the way, I weren't throwing shade. The point I was making is you can't shave your balls on a podcast, right? So you can promote the product, but you can't really do much else with the product. You know what I mean?
We should probably take it off YouTube Kids first, if we do.
That's all I was saying. It's like certain products you can't really advertise very strongly. Let's say. You can put the promotional code out there. You can promote it, but with the beer one, it's like we usually have a bit of a drink anyway, so it'd be nice to be able to include it in the show. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's all I was getting at. Not throwing shade. It just sounds a bit shady. That's all.
Okay. But yeah, so obviously, I couldn't remember the name of the bloody thing, but Fancy Faction, everyone in there, we'll give you a shout out. I can't remember everyone who's in it, unfortunately, but some really, really good guys, good podcasts out there and stuff like that as well. So if you look up Fancy Faction on Instagram, you'll see everyone involved in that. So yeah,
as you say, we can give them throw some links out there and what have you as well. But
throw some links. That's what we do.
Thanks. And it turns out we're actually quite shit at it. But
yeah, that's my fault. I'm I'll build the roster. I'm not good.
But it turns out we're not good. But we're trying.
That's it. I think maybe you should take over the reins. I stupidly backed Drew McIntyre, so I'm either going to score really big,
you're voting with your heart, damn it.
Well, and my penis. So that is it for this week in wrestling. We'll leave you with the wonderful Thunder Rosa, who we're wishing a speedy recovery to say goodbye for this segment.
Hey everybody, this is Thunder Rosa, and you're watching or listening A to the K. A to the K. A to the K. A to the K.